Hello everyone, welcome to TGen Center for Rare Childhood Disorders. We are a group of scientists and clinicians working together to help patients with rare disorders. My name is Carrie Ramsey, and I am a nurse and the clinical co-director of the center. We are committed to developing, refining, and applying the latest tools of genomic medicine to help diagnose and direct treatment of children with rare disorders. Did you know that there are over 7,000 rare diseases and that they affect over 25 million Americans? Many of these patients are on a diagnostic odyssey that involves multiple tests and doctor visits that can be expensive and painful. To address this challenge, TGen Center for Rare Childhood Disorders was created with the goal of using advances in genomic testing to identify the factors that cause rare disorders in children, which comprises approximately half of all rare disease patients. We also have a large focus on mitochondrial disease, tuberous sclerosis complex, Rett syndrome, and neurodevelopmental disorders. We use patient-derived cell lines and animals, such as mouse and zebrafish, to model human disease. And what's amazing about our center is that patients and their families don't pay a dime. Most of our research relies on the generosity of private donations. To find out more about the research at the center, or to see if you qualify for enrollment in one of our studies, please enter your information in our online registry found on our webpage, or contact me or one of our clinical research coordinators. Our information is located in the contact section of our website. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you all for joining us for Thankful Tuesday. We are from TGen, which is a private nonprofit research institute in downtown Phoenix. And I have two individuals from our Center for Rare Childhood Disorders with us today, Carrie and Newell. So, Carrie, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are?
Sure. So my name is Carrie Ramsey, and I'm the clinical co-director of the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders. My background is that after graduating from college, I worked as a research assistant in the lab, so lab technician, processing samples, focusing primarily on neurological disorders. And then I actually left TGen and went to ASU, where I got my nursing degree. And then I worked in the hospital system as an ICU nurse for 4 years before returning back to TGen as a clinical research coordinator. And I love working with the families at the center. I think my background provides not only the scientific side, but also, it's really like the bench to bedside, right? So I'm dealing with families, and I'm able to help interpret the results of our testing to them.
Wonderful. And a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name's Newell Belknap, and I'm a physician assistant, and I also a research coordinator at the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders. I got involved with TGen because I have two children that have a rare disease, and TGen helped our family find answers. And I was fortunate enough to actually kind of have a change in my career and start working part-time for TGen. And I actually live in Sholo, Arizona, and so I do a lot of telecommuting and get to come down to TGen about once a month to do some work here. And so I'm grateful to be a part of this wonderful organization.
Great. Well, thank you again both for taking the time to join us today. I'm going to start with the first question. What does the C4RCD mean to you? And I guess, Newell, let's start with you.
Okay. So it's difficult to put into words really what the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders actually means to me and our family, because they've actually done so much and made such an impact on our family. If you think about rare diseases, there's over 7,000 of them. There's so many of them, and most of these, I think it's like 95%, do not have any kind of a FDA approved treatment. And there's a lot of people that are affected. There's 1 in 10 Americans, or 30 million Americans, and I think 400 million globally. And that's a lot of people that are affected by a rare disorder. For our family, it took 14 years for my oldest daughter to find answers, and it took over 2 years for my son to get answers. And on average, it's about 6 to 8 years before somebody gets a diagnosis of a rare disease. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of sleepless nights trying to wonder what to do, where to go. So the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders at TGen actually helps those families. We get the families that have gone through that whole gamut of testing and really don't know what to do or where to go. And those are the families who we help, just like my family. And so having an organization that does that and helps these families is really priceless. So I would say that what the C4RCD means really to me is it has provided us hope, and it provides hope for other families that are in this similar situation as we are. If today, take 6 to 8 years today, if we were to have gotten introduced to TGen today, it could have taken a month to get an answer, right? Because we sequenced the DNA, and it would have popped right out the answers that we were looking for. So I would say I could sum it up with hope. It provides hope for me and my family and many others.
Amazing. Carrie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think before I really talk about, what it means to me, I think it would be good to just kind of explain what it is, and the services that we do provide. And I think Newell, touched on a lot of the points, but, up until really, 5 to 7 years ago, you would have a child that would just be diagnosed with epilepsy, right? And they'd be receiving treatments, medications to treat their seizures, but we wouldn't really know what the cause was. And so, through the National Institutes of Health and the Human Genome Project, and really knowing the DNA sequence of the human genome, we've made huge advances in being able to diagnose cancers and rare childhood disorders. And so when we started the center back in 2012, a lot of these families didn't have a genetic diagnosis, and there really wasn't a lot of clinical testing that was available at the time. And so the center was started so that we could perform this type of next generation sequencing, where we're looking at over 20,000 genes at one time to try and find the mutation that's causing the child's symptoms. And so we, to date, we've enrolled over 650 families, a lot of those from Arizona. And we've been able to provide about 40% of those families with a genetic diagnosis for their child. And, as Newell said, this doesn't always lead to treatments. Only 5% of rare disorders are said to have an actual treatment, but there still is a lot of benefit right now in having a diagnosis. It lets families participate in additional research studies focused specifically on their child's disease. It lets them connect to other families who are going through the same thing that they're going through. It gives them an idea of what to expect with the course of their child's disease. And with, we are just on the cusp of gene therapy and gene editing. And in order to help treat some of these diseases, it's so important to know what is the underlying genetic cause. And I think as this technology gets better and better, that treatment rate, that 5% treatment rate is just going to grow and grow. And if we're able to fix the genetic mutation or trick the cells to ignore that genetic mutation in one disease, we can apply a lot of that same technology across all of the different disorders. So families really come to us when they don't have a genetic diagnosis. They may have already had genetic testing, but they just haven't found an answer yet. And we're able to look at that genome again and see if we can find something from a research perspective. And then for some of the families, we have brought the research in-house, and we do focus on a list of disorders called mitochondrial diseases that affect the energy production inside the cell. And we do some of that research in-house. We also have a lot of research in Rett syndrome, which is a disorder that affects mostly female girls and causes intellectual disability and seizures. We also are studying a type of epilepsy that's caused by mutations in a gene called DNM1. And the way we're studying this at TGen is through the use of cell lines and animal models. And so we actually use, animals like zebrafish, which are, we share 70% of the genome with those types of animals. And we're creating the patient's mutations in these fish to try and see if we can mimic the disorder. And then after that, use different already approved FDA compounds to treat the fish. And and lots of other ways that we're studying these types of disorders. So, that's a lot. Just kind of explain, a lot of what we do. But we're really, the center is full of scientists and clinicians that are working together to help undiagnosed children with rare diseases, and to take it one step further to really understand what is the cause of the disease, and are there treatment methods that we can use to help those families. And so I think Newell really summed it up when he said that there's hope. A lot of times these families, we are a last resort for them. That they often have to travel long distances to see specialists. And so, it's nice to have this little jewel here in the desert and in the Southwest, a place where these families can turn when they need help.
It's wonderful. I love the mission and everything that's happening with the C4RCD. But Karen, I think you might be able to, or even know, because you have found TGen's Center for Rare Child Disorders, how do families find it?
Well, we do have a lot of families are referred through their geneticist or their neurologist. We can enroll families from Arizona, but also from all over the country. We've even enrolled a cohort of families from Mexico. Some families find us by visiting our website at tgen.org. And others, through word of mouth, through other friends and family.
And Newell, can you kind of talk about how your family was able to find TGen?
Yeah. So by the time we were introduced to Dr. Narayanan and TGen, and it was mainly my youngest son who really was not doing well. And I think he was probably the fourth neurologist that we had seen. It was a physician in Phoenix that finally said, I don't know what's going on, but I think I know someone that can help you. And so it was a referral from another physician, I think, and that was almost 10 years ago. In fact, it was 10 years ago. But at that time, the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders hadn't opened. It was just a concept that they wanted to do, and we were just fortunate enough to be one of those families that were able to get in and get some help. So I think back then it was a lot harder, to just because social media wasn't really as big as it is today. Yeah, we were very fortunate to finally have somebody say, I don't know what's going on, but I think somebody does, or someone can help you.
I'm sure that just meant a lot, that you could finally get a few answers for your family when it had been so long that you didn't have an understanding or an answer to what was going on with your children.
Right. I mean, just having an organization like the C4RCD, that's what their mission is. We don't do anything else. That's just priceless for families that are on that journey of trying to figure things out.
Yes, absolutely. And Carrie, you mentioned that the C4RCD is the jewel in the desert in the Southwest. What else is making it? Obviously, it's a jewel. It only focuses on children with rare childhood disorders. But what are some other things that make the center unique?
I think a lot of it is just our continued effort to help these families. So sometimes when families visit a geneticist, they may get testing done and the report comes back and says, nothing was found. And, we don't stop looking. So, I think a perfect example of this is the case of a young boy named Alex, who we had sequenced back in 2012, 2013. And at the time, we hadn't found a genetic diagnosis for him. And his family continued to seek help from multiple institutions all around the world. And, we continued to go back into the data because the software tools and the technology that we use is constantly getting better. And so we were able to actually, 2 years ago, in reanalyzing his data file, discover that he has a mutation in a gene that had literally just been associated with disease the month before. So, we had missed it the first time around because this gene had never been associated with a neurodegenerative disorder. And because we went back into the data, we were able to provide a diagnosis for Alex. And since then, his family has been really focused on working with the scientists that are studying the specific gene and the specific disorder, and they're trying to help these children. And so here they went from being like, well, we just don't know what the cause is and we're just going to continue to search, to okay, now we know, and they've connected with other families who have children with the same mutation, and they are working on finding a gene therapy treatment option for these kids and for Alex. So I don't know that a lot of places really offer that continued effort. We just don't give up. We continue to try and help these families.
Thank you. Newell, anything else? I know that there's a lot of things happening with your family and your background, and being part of TGen is working with us. But anything else you'd like to share that would consider unique for C4RCD?
Yeah, that Carrie mentioned that that we don't stop looking for answers, and when we enroll a family, I think of it like they're signing up or they're being adopted into the TGen family, and it's a big family. As Carrie said, there's over 650 families that we are studying now. She also mentioned that families are able to connect with other families, and kind of just that aspect of it, having somebody that you can contact, and that's easy to do these days over the internet and things, just to get an idea of what they are going through and get some ideas, and you bounce things off these families, what helps, what works, what doesn't work. Is so useful. So that connection to other families, and we're able to do that, is very helpful for families. So I would say that's and then getting these families also in touch with these researchers, these scientists that are studying this. At least they have something that they can look to, and not necessarily that, and we don't want to provide families false hope, right? That just because we have a diagnosis now, there's going to be a cure. That it doesn't work like that. But at least it's something, right? And then these families can then contribute to the knowledge, and which will help other families down the road that will have to go through this same process. So I think that's those are some of the ways that we are unique.
I definitely think that families that are going through things like this, the support structure is huge. so that they know that they're not the only ones going through maybe not the same genetic disorder, but similar in the rareness and not having a lot of resources available to them to know what's coming next. So being able to network and communicate with other families that are doing something similar or going through something similar is big for support. So just kind of changing up and looking at the future, is there anything, new treatments or new tests on the horizon for the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders?
Well, so right now we're actually a site for a pharmaceutical clinical trial in Rett syndrome, and we are studying, we've enrolled 10 girls that have Rett syndrome, which I said is, this intellectual disability and seizure disorder. And the drug is thought to improve their quality of life. And so it's really exciting to be, one of 28 centers around the country that are participating in this study, in which, we hope to enroll the last patient in May of this year and hopefully have some results, in a year's time, showing whether this medication is helping these girls. So, we're not only doing the research side, at the bench, but we're also providing therapies and treatments to these patients. And then we also have a collaboration with with the City of Hope. We're an affiliate of the City of Hope, with a lab that's run by Dr. Chatterjee, and they use an AV virus for gene therapy purposes. And so we're hoping in collaboration with this group to develop a gene therapy tool for Rett syndrome. And we are at the moment looking at patient cell lines and animal models. And hopefully if those preliminary experiments go well, then we can take it to the next level.
Great. Can you explain an AV virus?
Sure. This is one of the, you hear CRISPR, you hear these AV viruses. These are kind of like the hot, topics that are going out right now. But, these are viruses that are found in our bodies that don't actually cause disease. And so what we can do is we can actually insert the normal copy of a gene into this virus, and these viruses will enter the individual's cells. And the hope is that normal copy of the DNA or RNA can be incorporated into that person's genome, and that then the normal copy of the gene can be produced.
Awesome.
And so and right now there's a couple therapies that have been approved by the FDA. And some of these include, eye disease. So you can imagine there's like a localized injection that's helpful. So what we have to deal with on our side is how can we get this therapy to the brain? And, is it safe? That's one of our number one concerns. And is it actually effective?
Awesome. Newell, anything you know that's coming up on the horizon for TGen and C4RCD?
Well, as Carrie mentioned, we have a strong emphasis in mitochondrial disorders, and that is the type of disorder that specifically Lee syndrome. When my children got a genetic diagnosis, I think that particular gene, which is the MTFMT gene, I think it had only been known that it was a disease-causing mutation for less than a year. So there's been a lot of work with that particular gene and with mitochondrial disorders in general, to really be able to take it to the next level, and that is going from a diagnosis to actually trying to find treatments. You really have to know a lot about the biology of what that gene actually does and what its role is in overall health of the body. And that takes a lot of time and resources. So TGen has done a lot of that work to understand the biology of MTFMT mutations, and they've actually created a mouse model where they've been able to insert that MTFMT mutation into mice, and that gives us a model to study and do experiments on to see what works and what doesn't work. So that's one of the areas that that we've been able to do experiments on and to help.
That's awesome. So just as we wrap things up, just really quickly, Carrie, what's your favorite thing about working with the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders?
I mean, hands down, it's the families and the children. I just love it. I mean, especially when we have, these clinical trial days and the families come in and you get to talk to them about how they're doing on the medication and if they're seeing any improvement in these girls. These families are just so devoted. I mean, rare disease families in general, they're so devoted to their kids, to helping them live better lives. And it just brings me so much joy when we can help them.
I'm sure it does. And Newell, on your end, either as an employee or as a family that's going through everything at the C4RCD, what's your favorite thing?
I would say that the same thing that Carrie has mentioned, that is just being able to work with these families. And, when we find these answers, when we find that disease causing mutation, and giving those answers back to a family, it is very rewarding. I know what that's like, and I know that being able to share that with a family and let them have that joy is wonderful. And maybe one experience with a family that living in the Northeast. Literally had gone all over the world looking for answers. And this particular family had two daughters that were affected by this rare neurological disorder. And it was just devastating for this family. This family, actually, there was a video that was shown in France. And this lady and her family were living in the Northeast, and they just happened to see this broadcast that was going on in France, and they sent an email wanting to know if we could help their two daughters. And it was about 3 years later or so that we got the answer, and they were the mother and the father had literally gone they went to Africa, they went to places in France, they went to places in Europe, looking for answers, and then now they were in the United States. So like 24 years later, they got some answers. As Carrie mentioned, these families are devoted to their kids. This mother would not stop until they found answers. And we were able to connect this family with a group at Harvard that had already collected over 20 families that they were studying. And now this family was included with that cohort of patients. And so that is just so rewarding to be able to help these families.
I just think that's amazing. I know as a parent myself, anything that I can get with the support for my children, and they don't have a rare child disorder. So just having that support structure and being able to find the answers. I know when I have something going on with my kids, I'm like, I don't know, help me. So I'm sure that you're providing those answers and that help to those families is just so wonderful to finally find those answers for the families. So again, thank you so much, both of you, for your time. I appreciate everything that you're doing at the Center for Rare Childhood Disorders. I love hearing the new studies and the new information that's coming out from you guys. So again, have a wonderful day. Enjoy. And I appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.